All right, everyone, welcome back to episode 4 of the MC Events podcast. I'm Joey Capollo again, joined this week by Gilan and our guest, steinbulf.
Hello, everybody.
As always, I'm Joey, the owner and manager of Block Wars, as well as the owner of the MCC Highlights channel. So I have a lot of expertise in running, managing, and analyzing events. And Gilan.
Hello, I am a Java developer, so I have a lot of experience with the technical side of events and making events work and function. Those are both synonyms. But we are joined by Stein, who's very special today. Stein, what do you do?
I am very special. Thanks for mentioning it. I'm kidding. So I have a background being a host on MCC the show. I have a lot of experience analyzing events, so that's kind of the angle I'm coming from. I love the competitive Minecraft scene and the direction it's going, and I love to be kind of a part of helping to push it forward. But the reason I'm here today is for my experience making music for Minecraft events. So we're going to be talking a lot about music for Minecraft events, basically. So as I was working on MCC the show, as I started to get involved with more Capollo Media related things, I had already been making music for years, and I realized, hey, maybe this could be a good opportunity for me to make some music for some of these events and help them out and help them grow. So I decided to get involved with that, and I've been making music for Block Wars and a little bit of other stuff.
Yeah, and we're glad to have you here to talk about making music for Block Wars, as well as your just knowledge and insight into making music for Minecraft events in general. So I guess the obvious first question then is, how'd you get into creating music? Obviously, you said how you got into it for Minecraft, but you said you've been doing it for years now.
Yeah, so I've pretty much been involved in music-related things my whole life. Like from a very young age, my parents were very, encouraging of me, picking up instruments and getting involved in music. And I have kind of a very music-oriented mind. I think I kind of have just an intuitive understanding of music, so I've been involved in that for a while. And then it was around when I was like 11 years old or something. I realized that, hey, maybe I could like write music, because I've never been the type to like perform. I've never been that good under the spotlight. I say that as a host on MCC the show, but ignore that. But basically, I was like, hey, if I want to be involved in music, but I don't want to perform, maybe I could write music. Maybe I could create the music. And I was like 11 years old now, and I realized that. And so I started basically messing around in MuseScore, which is a free music creating software. And the things that I created on MuseScore were bad, but I was making progress. And that was the point, is that I basically just experimented a ton, basically created whatever I was sort of passionate about in the moment. And I just sort of messed around, created a bunch of things, and eventually got better and better. And then I, kind of like a year later after I started that, I started to take formal lessons. So I would take lessons in, composition and production, a little bit of music theory and stuff like that. So I've been taking lessons now for many years.
Nice. So you have plenty of experience when you got into this, and so is using all that experience and knowledge and now applying it into a Minecraft event.
Yes.
So you've worked on some Block Wars tracks in, what was it, second or third season now of Block Wars? And I believe we have 3 here that you've worked on. So talking about the first one, I think I'll actually go the outro for Block Wars. Funny to say that's the first one, but the outro of Block Wars is how did you go about creating that? What were you going with there?
Yeah, so that was the first piece of music that I worked on for Block Wars. It was the first time where I was making music that was being like shown to a large audience. So I was very nervous about it. And I wanted to make sure that it was really good. I knew that Block Wars music up to that point was very much like kind of chiptune, like kind of 80s synthesizers, but kind of, remixed into a video game style. I know that Block Wars music was very much based around that style, and so I wanted to emulate that style, but I also wanted to kind of take it in my own direction. And my thought process was basically like the outro. This is gonna be the last thing that you hear when you like play in Block Wars. So I wanted to make sure that I'm leaving everybody off with like a good mood coming out of it.
Mhm.
So that's why I went for kind of a very like sappy, sentimental type of feeling because I want people to remember Block Wars in a positive light, right? Like I want people to enjoy to remember have their last memory of Block Wars be something that they enjoyed. So so I went kind of very nostalgic, like calling back to the main theme of Block Wars. Um I was heavily inspired by other Block Wars music just in terms of like the melodies and stuff that I used. But in terms of the actual instruments, I included the same kind of like 80s synthesizers that Block Wars had before, but I also added a little bit more to that. I added like a piano and some more interesting like sounds and stuff that I included.
Mhm.
So I kind of went a little bit in my own direction with instrumentation.
I also, I guess, wanted to mention to the audience that the music for Block Horse is available on, I think, YouTube and Spotify
Mhm.
That
now.
is true.
So if you're like, well, I don't know what outro sounds like. I haven't, I haven't stayed that long in a Block Horse stream. Um, you can go listen to that, and I would encourage people to go listen to all the music.
You can
And
catch my
maybe,
tracks and the tracks of all the other like 5
Mhm.
people that have made
Yeah,
Block
yeah, all
Wars
the other
music.
composers too. Yeah,
There's a
we
lot of
can't get them
people.
all on. That would have been a bit too complicated.
A bit crowded. So another thing that I made for Block Wars later was Extraction. This is
Mm.
another one where I took a lot of inspiration from previous Block Wars music, and in particular, I wanted to preserve the theme from the old Bridges music,
Mm.
which is the thing that Emerald made. Basically, Emerald was the person that made all of the music for what was it?
Series 1.
Origin Series 1 of Block Wars. Um, and the Bridges track was like the one track where everybody kind of like enjoyed it and it was kind of like it's just a fun melody really, and I wanted to preserve that in some way, but at the same time I wanted to make a piece of music that actually fit the vibe of Extraction. And I figured like, okay, you're extracting into a helicopter, that's a very like kind of secret agent James Bond type thing to do. So I wanted to make it seem like a like a top secret mission, like, gizmos and gadgets and stuff. I went for that kind of vibe. And incorporating the old Bridges melody with that like genre of music is genuinely one of the most difficult things I've ever done in music
Mm.
production because they do not go together at
Mhm.
all. Like it was like oil and water, genuinely. That melody with that like style, the fact that somehow made it work is incredible, and it literally took me,
Yeah.
like, a couple of months to get it right.
Extraction's also a game where it's played 7 times, 7 rounds,
Mhm.
and the song is started each
The
time,
song
ended
loops
each time.
every time, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were saying you have to get it right. People are gonna listen to it 7 times in an event.
Right, exactly.
So it's gotta have every part of it really jamming out.
Yeah.
And then the other song track you made was Sky Zone, which sounds like it probably had a different process than Extraction or the outro.
Sky Zone was funny because with both Outro and Extraction, I spent, like, a kind of a long time, like, figuring things out, like, molding everything into the, you know, like, the perfect, like, shape that I wanted it to be in. Sky Zone, I had, like, a couple weeks left before the event where it needed to be, like, where the music needed to be there, and I basically just, like, got a spark of inspiration, and there was just one day where I just spent, like, the entire day just making the Sky Zone music and nothing else. I didn't do the homework that day that I probably should
Hmm.
have done,
Mhm.
and instead I just decided to make the Sky Zone music, and I finished, like, the vast majority of that song in that one day, which was
Dang.
incredible. I was very surprised that I was able to do that much, and then basically, I showed it to my teacher, and then he, like, made some suggestions, I made some tweaks, and then that was pretty much it. We had this guy's own music.
So wait, we need to credit that teacher in our credits for the song?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, probably. It would definitely help to dox me, but you know.
I missed the other joke in there, which it sounds like you were in the sky zone when you made the track.
Okay, Joe, we're
Joey,
gonna move on.
okay, we're looking for a new host for this podcast.
Everyone else appreciates my humor.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let
So
us
you
know in the
mentioned
comments if you think Joey's joke was funny.
so you mentioned that, you know, 2 of those tracks were based off of other ones, and you're having to fit into someone else's style. And you talked about a bit, but specifically, like, what challenges do you think what challenges do you have when you're trying to fit into someone else's style? Or also, what advantages do you have when you're trying to fit into someone else's style?
Well, it was interesting because, you know, I came in to Block Wars. Block Wars had a very established style of music. Um, and I was basically thinking like, I have like no experience writing in this style of music. So I just kind of want to like make sure that I'm not sacrificing quality just for the purpose of fitting into this style. So I ended up like kind of taking it in my own direction. Like if you look through the tracks that I've made for Block Wars, almost none of them will like perfectly fit into that like chip tune style that Block Wars has always had. They always have like some sort of variation, whether it's like in the instrumentation or just like the overall style and like the melodies I'm using. It everything that I make has some of my own flair to it, but also certain elements of the style that I'm trying to fit into and mimic. So I think it's important to not have the style as like your only thing that matters. Like if you're trying to make music, make sure it's good, right? Even if that means deviating a little bit from the style, if it's good, it's gonna work.
Yeah, and I mean, as you said, like, there's a lot of different composers that make Block Wars music. Each of them is going to bring their own thing. Like, if they're all the same person, like, why do you have 5? Like, there's no advantage to having more of them. Like, you just,
Yeah,
it's the if a person's making music, music is an art. It's going to be like them. Like, it's going to have part of them in it. So,
yeah,
as you said, your Block Wars music is part Block Wars. You could say it's part like Emerald, but like it's also part you. You know, there's
right.
your music expertise in there.
And it adds a nice variety and a nice distinction between the different games. You really feel like you're playing different games rather than just like the same vibe throughout the whole 3
Mhm.
hours.
And I think the other thing, I mean, you say that different vibes, but if you ever played a game without its music at all, it is a very different experience if you play Extraction when it's silent.
It is.
Yeah, and I mean, I did some testing. I remember testing a few games before they had music. Sometimes we'd be testing them. And it
And
would be like it's totally different than an event. Like it just feels different.
yeah. And I've watched a couple of Block Wars VODs where the creators like turn the music off throughout the whole thing, and I'm just like, why?
I know that
Like you're
must hurt
hurting
you.
your own experience. Like, please.
That's you have the only
I spent
role.
so long on that.
You have the only role where the person playing could just turn off your contribution.
That's true. I'm just the most like expendable part of Block Wars.
I don't know about expendable, but there's a toggle for you, which seems kind of rude.
Right. No,
Yeah,
I
where's the
think
map toggle that allows you
yeah.
to turn the
Where's the
map
game
off?
design toggle?
Toggle on
It just
the
turns
code.
off points. There's no more points.
Toggle off the code. Now there's no event. It's a let's play.
It's just a survival.
You just go to the flat worlds. But it sounds like even though you're not necessarily working with the other, track composers or music people on these things, you're still collaborating with like what they've made before, and even still collaborating with your music teacher, ask for feedback. But how else are you like collaborating when you're making tracks with other people on the dev team of an event?
So once in a while when you're making a certain track, you're gonna have some sort of timing like constraint or requirement that you need to meet. And when you do have that, like it's always annoying. You want to have the freedom to just like, time your music however you want, because then, there's just more you can do. But once in a while, you will have a constraint of like it should be this long. I know in particular, there was an issue with that for Toxic May when they were writing the music for when all of like the points are revealed at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That is a track that had specific timing, and so they had to really like focus in on that. Um, I haven't done anything for Block Wars where there's like a specific timing constraint. Because most of the music that I've done is either like the outro where it's just like there's no ending point like to it, but also where it's like Sky Zone. Actually, hold on, I'm completely wrong. Extraction does have a timing constraint, so
Mhm.
I did have to fit that. And I remember fiddling around a lot with like the tempo for that song to try to make it fit into that specific like round length.
Yeah.
So there will definitely be communication of like, yeah, this track should be this long, and etc. But oftentimes it can just be a loop, like Sky Zone. Like when the Sky Zone music finishes, it just plays again. Like there
Mhm.
doesn't need to be a specific length for it. Um, and so
Mhm.
basically, apart from that, like there's very little like requirements or like specific constraints that I have to deal with. It's usually just like sometimes you'll have to time things correctly, and sometimes you don't, and that's pretty much it. Like,
Yeah. But it can be a case where, depending on what the track is for, there could be very precise timing, and then you have to not only get what the timing is told to you from the dev team, but then even test out how the music actually sounds in game and kind of do a back and forth revisions to make sure it all lines up.
Yeah,
um,
I did wanna mention one thing because I know I've actually talked to Stein about this with other stuff, but, like, playing music to people in, like, a Minecraft event, like, from a server is just so annoying because, like, the amount of control you have is very little compared to, like, a video game, or especially, like, a modern video game. Because if you play a modern video game, there's, like, a lot most video games now have, like, an adaptive soundtrack where it's, like, the soundtrack can change based off of what you do in game. Like, as you do something,
mhm,
it'll shift from if you go from one region to another, it'll change what the music is, and it'll put in a
yeah,
little transition that'll cleanly move over. Minecraft on a server just it's not like that. Like the way you play music is you just send a message to a player and say start playing this track that I gave you when you join the server, and it presses play and it just keeps looping it. Or actually you have to tell it to loop it, and that's the other annoying thing, that looping can be off based off of lag and stuff.
mm.
So the amount of control, like technically, is very little. And I think, I've talked to Stein about this. That's a limit that you just have to kind of deal with and try to make the
Mhm.
music to fit around that.
We have done plenty of talking on how the Minecraft audio engine is kinda not it.
Yeah, it's getting
Um,
better, but
there are so many capabilities that we wish it had that it just doesn't. So
Mhm.
that can be an annoying thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then Stein, obviously, it sounds like you have a lot of experience making all these things. What are the tools you kind of use to make tracks, like for the software, the samples, and then how did you go about learning this kind of music production?
Yeah, so the software that I use is Ableton Live.
Mhm.
It's a pretty standard like music production software. It tends to specialize in like live loop recording, which is not what I do, but that's fine. Um, I'm pretty comfortable with
Mhm.
Ableton, and it's served me pretty well over the years. Um, and then uh, there's in terms of like the samples that I use, uh, the majority is either from like the default Ableton library
Mhm.
or from a subscription sound library that I have called East West Composer Cloud.
Mhm.
Um, I don't expect anybody to know what that is,
Hmm.
but it's basically a thing where you can get like almost professional quality sound samples that you can use.
Mhm.
Um, and that is something that has helped me a lot.
Yeah. And just to explain for people who aren't maybe not aware, what is a sound sample, and how do you then use that?
Yeah, so a sound sample is basically like you click in a note, and when that note plays, it'll play a certain like audio file. So that audio file could be like a piano key being pressed, or it could be like a synthesizer like being played, or it could be like someone like playing a violin.
Mhm.
Like if you click in the note and you make the note longer, it'll like hold out the violin note for longer or something like that. And so basically the sound samples is just like what is the actual audio file that plays when the note is played in the software.
Mhm.
And I think from experience of trying to download samples myself, it can be a pretty beefy download, can it? Because it's a lot of, especially a good
Oh yeah.
audio, like good samples. Like the problem, you don't think about this when you're like, oh, it's just, a violin playing an A. It's not that hard. But it's like, okay, what if they're plucking it, or if it's like a
Right.
short bow or a long bow or a
I
hold
have
out or
next
quick,
I have next to me on my desk a 5 terabyte hard drive, and
Jeez.
its primary purpose, it's not like full, only like 1 terabyte is taken up, but its primary purpose is to hold all of my music stuff that like takes up tons of file space.
Mhm.
Um, so that is something that is very annoying.
Yeah.
It takes up a USB slot on my computer like constantly.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of sucks, but to use those like really detailed sound samples, then yeah, that's the kind of thing you might need to have.
Mhm. And then how'd you go about learning this process and, utilizing these tools to now make tracks?
Oh, just through my lessons
Mhm.
over the years. Uh, I think you just have to kind of learn from people with experience. Is just the best way to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Would you say that, let's say you're a person and you don't have access to a teacher to constantly go to, do you think like you could still learn from, YouTube videos and other things? Do you think you could gather a lot from that?
I think it's not as good, unfortunately. Like I wish this kind of stuff was more accessible, but unfortunately, like having those like in-person conversations with, well, not in person, but like, having the one-on-one conversations with people who really like know what they're talking about is kind of priceless.
Mhm.
It kind of sucks that it has to be that way, but it is kind of that way.
So
You can certainly learn some concepts from YouTube videos, and certainly with things like music theory, like that's definitely something you can learn, um, like online, I would say. But with like using these tools, you either have to kind of spend the time to figure it out yourself, which might not be ideal, or you just got to learn from someone who knows what they're doing.
mhm. So this is where you offer, anyone who wants to learn about this, leave a comment on this video and Stein will reach out to you,
Hey,
of
if
course.
you're willing to pay me, I will give lessons. They might not be good lessons, but I'll
That'll
try.
be decent lessons.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, but it sounds like even if you didn't have access to a teacher or somebody to do this, there are ways you could start learning and try to get like a basis and a foundation for, how to
Sure.
make
There
music.
there are basic things you can learn online, and honestly, if you have, like, basic questions about music stuff, you can DM me on Discord, and I might be happy to help with that.
Yeah, we'll leave that as the pinned comment so Stein will get spammed.
Mhm.
And then
Fun.
Send so many messages, tons of them.
so in this hypothetical, Stein, we're advising, people through this podcast of how to make a Minecraft event. And so
Right.
whoever we're out there is, currently working on their Minecraft event, they have their games, they have the lengths of them, and like, oh shoot, we need music for them. How would you kind of suggest they start, getting music for those games?
Yeah, this can be kind of a tough question. I think it's important to keep in mind, like, what is the purpose of music in a Minecraft event, right? I think the primary purpose of music, the main reason you have it, is to set the mood. You want to get
Mm,
people in the right mood, get the right like vibe going for the game that you're playing. Um, it really just comes down to you're setting the mood. That is the primary purpose of music. And if you want to kind of go farther than that, if you want to kind of achieve more, then you can try to create things like really catchy melodies and things that like people are going to hum and remember after the event. That's kind of like the next step is once you've established the mood, oh, then we can create like memorable things that people will hum. Which is what we like to call motifs. A motif is just something
mhm.
that will get stuck in your head, and you'll just kind of start humming it a lot. Like a little melody or a little like drum beat or whatever. That's just iconic.
Yeah.
Um, right. So main purpose is to set the mood, and then on top of that, if you feel like it, you can create the memorable motifs. Um, Now the thing is that music is like really expensive in general.
Mhm.
Um, if you want to like commission someone to make music for your event, and like the person is like, taking paid commissions, you're probably going to end up like having to spend a lot of money if you're going to get music like that. Because music is just expensive to make, because the actual like producer of the music needs to spend money on getting like the assets, the sound samples and the software and stuff that they need. And then of course they have to put in the hours of making the music. So music is expensive. So if you're going to pay for like a really high quality thing to be made, expect to have to pay a lot. Here's the thing though. If you are willing to get like a lower budget music track made, I think that is still a perfectly valid approach. You don't need something to be like super high, like paid quality for it to do its job. Because again, the purpose of the music is to set the mood. You're trying to create basically this kind of a subconscious effect. The point of this is kind of a theme in music creation of like you're creating this subconscious effect where like the person doesn't realize that they're being influenced, but really they are being influenced because the music is just underneath everything, and you don't realize the music is setting the mood, but it really is just like setting you in the exact mood that you want. So as long as the music sets the proper like vibe of what you're doing, that's fine. Just go with that. It doesn't need to be like the highest budget. There have been Minecraft events where the music is pretty low budget, right? But it still worked. It was still valid music that did its job. So don't think that the music has to be perfect to do its job. And just on top of that, like there can always be like copyright issues if you're trying to like take music from somewhere else. If you're trying to take like music from other games or other like media or whatever, that can get you into some trouble. But I would say if you're creating like a relatively small Minecraft event and it's just kind of like a community focused thing, you're not planning on like expanding to being like a large scale operation, well then you could potentially take just like stock music, just go on like Epidemic Sound or some other like Audio Jungle, right? Everybody knows the Audio Jungle, like the little soundbite there. You can go on Epidemic Sound or Audio Jungle or whatever, find some music on there, download it and incorporate that. As long as you're not trying to be too ambitious with your event. If you want your event to like grow like crazy and have large content creators in it, you definitely want original music if you're going to have music.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much, I would say, a decent guide on like what to think about.
I do want to mention one thing, which is that, we're talking about, money spent on like samples and all these things. It is possible to make music that like yourself, like if you're, a developer and you want to make music, you can make it pretty cheaply, but the trade-off is that you're going to have to kind of make like a chiptune style synthesizer type music. Like you're not going to be able to make a high quality orchestra sound. Although actually
Right.
with how some music tools are developing recently, like MuseScore 4 coming out, you actually can kind of get closer to that. I was messing around with that a bit ago and it is starting to sound much better. But I think when we look at events like Block Wars, especially at the beginning, that was just a very chiptuney style. That's kind of
right.
It doesn't need those super high quality things. I mean, MCC is a synthesizer, like those synthesizer music. It's written by one of the
right.
Because Isaac is one of the game developers. Like that is kind of that example of just kind of the going for the slightly cheaper option, and it can still work and fit the mood very well.
Right. But I will say, I bet even for MCC music, there are probably some expensive samples in there, or at least, samples that took a long time to create. I bet there are things that are like that in the MCC music, because they have the budget for that. But so again, don't expect the music you create to be like anywhere as good as MCC music if you have no budget. Like, right? But you can expect it to do its job, and that's the point. You can expect it to set the mood.
It's like what Gil and I have been saying in previous episodes, like be realistic to the scope of your event and kind of what it's for and what its purpose is and how much time's going to be put into it, and then have each of the elements you're working on match that. If it's going to be for your friends that you play, every game night you have with them every couple of weeks or every month, but you're not really going to change things, you can put in some stock music. It's going to be fine. But if your goal is to make a well-produced like spectacle of an event, well, then the music's going to need to match that spectacle. But either method you're going with is completely valid, and respect you for making that music, making those events, because there's space for all of them right now in the community.
Mm-hmm. And again, I'll say, like, if you're just starting out making music, don't expect it to be good. Like when I was making music at first, it took me like several years before I made anything that like I could look back on today as like something I'm proud of. Um, so it takes a while. You want to put in the time to just experiment. If you're really trying to become like a better music creator, just experiment. Just try out whatever. Like if you get like a weird, wacky idea in your brain for like something that could potentially be a song, make it, right? Don't expect it to be good, but make it, right? Because you're trying things out. You're getting better. You're practicing. You're developing your skills. It's all great.
Yeah. And that's true for a lot of the skills we talk about, whether development or developing in Minecraft, building, game design, art, music. All these things require time and energy to learn, and they're all in some way just a creative art to do, where there is no perfect version of them. There's only you having a vision and then bringing that vision to fruition, and hopefully it's comes out very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
So Stein, we're gonna give you one more big question, and then we'll probably start wrapping it up. I am somebody in this hypothetical scenario where I'm making a spectacle Minecraft event, but instead of it, we're talking from the event side. Say I am the music producer side, who has now been tasked to make this high quality music. Where are you starting?
Well, in this hypothetical situation, how much experience do you have making music?
Let's say like 10 years.
Oh, okay. No, 10 years of music experience is pretty good. So, I would say you want to focus on like what I said a little bit earlier, where like music is all about creating this kind of subtle, subconscious like effect that will like kind of secretly influence people, right? And when I say influence, I just mean like, get them in the right mood and the right vibe and stuff. So you want to think about that for the overall track, but you also want to think about that for a lot of the specific like features that you include in the music. Like there's a lot of I will bet for almost anybody listening to this, there's probably a lot of like little parts in the like Sky Zone or Extraction tracks that I bet you just didn't notice. And I wouldn't have noticed them either, probably, if someone else had made them. So there's all these little things that kind of subconsciously influence you to like it just a little bit more. And so focusing on including a lot of that kind of stuff will really make it feel more of a full experience.
So I know that at one point when we were working on music stuff, sometimes remember at one point when you were making a track for me, I provided you with like example tracks. So what do you think about like finding another game track that you like the idea of and being inspired by it? Like how does that factor in?
So yeah, so we call that a reference track. And they can be helpful, but they can also be dangerous. Because sometimes you will listen to a reference track and you'll think like, oh, that's perfect for what I want. I want to make something like that. And basically you're just going to create like that, but worse.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that is a common pitfall that I have certainly fallen into before, and can potentially be kind of a trap for people, where it's like you have this reference and you like it so much and you just end up kind of creating a worse version of it instead of creating your own thing. So reference tracks can be very useful to like get the basic vibe, but I think a good rule is when you have a reference track, don't listen to it like more than a few times, because then you're just going to get so attached to it.
Yeah. And so is the idea then you just kind of have the reference track and then move on to start making what you're doing?
Right. You listen to the reference track, you get a sense of the vibe you're going for, and then you're like, okay, I'll just try to make something that matches that vibe.
Could the potential also be to, have two reference tracks where you're trying to combine that, so then you kind of have, you're
Yes.
taking two kinds of things to put them together?
Having multiple reference tracks is also useful, and that can eliminate some of effect that I was talking about. But again, I would say for any one of those tracks, don't listen to it a whole lot.
Yeah.
Only listen to it enough where you get like a good sense of the vibe it's going for.
And then when you do finish your track, listen to that on repeat forever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, but it actually can be helpful. Like if you finish the thing you created that's like more original, then you can kind of compare it against the reference track and see like, are there any kind of side qualities that the reference track has that I could incorporate? Because at that point, right, you already have like your own vision for it, and now you can just add in little features here and there that might make it a bit more like that reference track.
Mhm. That makes sense. And then Stein, we'll start wrapping up here. So is there anything else you want to tell the audience or mention?
Watch Block Wars every month on Saturday morning. No, okay, I don't know.
Watch upcoming Block Wars March 11th at 2 p.m.
Woohoo.
That's true. We
EST.
do have an
Yeah.
upcoming Block Wars.
Block Wars.
I think that I am currently I've already made, I should say, quite a bit of music for a undisclosed Capollo Media project.
Exciting.
I think it's some of the best music I've ever made. And I'm really excited to see it
Yeah,
be like displayed to
Mhm.
people once that project gets finished.
for sure. Everyone that I know has listened to it has said it's awesome. And that project is one that the three of us here have been working on part together. And so it's coming soon. That's the undisclosed project Gilan's always talking about.
Soon TM.
Yeah.
Soon
It's
TM.
around the time Hightail releases. I think we'll go with that one.
But yeah, this is where we'll wrap it up. Stein, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your insight on music. We hope that those listening, were able to as well and take some insight from what you shared with us. Gilan, what are we talking about next week, though?
I think that next week we'll talk about I guess the constant dilemma when creating an event that we actually kind of went over in this episode when Stein was talking about music, which is the idea of a content creator event where you're planning on having, hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. I mean, MCC has hundreds of thousands of people sometimes watching the event versus just kind of like an event for your friend group. People aren't streaming it, they're just having a fun time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can also kind of go into the difference between casual and competitive events, kind of comparing these different kinds of events, and helping, the listener kind of figure out like what kind of event do they want to make?
Yeah.
What category do they feel like their event can fit into? Because, we talk about game design all the time, and your decision in terms of, these categories it has a very large effect on how you design your games to be played.
So next week we'll talk about scope and the format of your event, and we'll see everybody there. Thank you again, Stein, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.